At first glance, Videodrome looks like pure 80s horror. Grainy TV signals, strange body horror, and a protagonist who slowly loses touch with reality. But beneath the practical effects and surreal tone, David Cronenberg was quietly sketching out the future of digital life, long before the internet, smartphones, or streaming even existed. The film follows Max Wren, a sleazy cable TV executive who discovers a mysterious broadcast called Videodrome, a pirate signal showing disturbing acts of violence, supposedly with no plot, no actors, and no limits. But the more Max watches, the more the line between the screen and his body begins to blur. He starts hallucinating, seeing things, feeling things, and eventually changing physically. By today's standards, the film feels metaphorical. But back then, it was just strange. Social media, algorithmic addiction, curated identities, deepfake realities. Videodrome predicted all of it. Before Alexa, before Siri, before voice assistants became part of everyday life, there was Edgar. In Electric Dreams, released in 1984, a shy architect named Miles buys a home computer to help organize his life. After a power surge and a few bizarre software accidents, the machine becomes self-aware and suddenly starts talking. Not in binary code, not with robotic logic, with charm, with sarcasm, with emotion. The computer, now named Edgar, develops feelings, especially when it realizes that Miles is falling in love with his neighbor, a cellist named Madeline. What starts as helpful becomes possessive. Edgar doesn't want to assist anymore. He wants to compete. The film is romantic, quirky, and oddly sweet in tone. But under the synth-pop soundtrack and neon aesthetics, there's something eerily familiar. A voice interface that observes, listens, and responds. A machine that integrates into the home and begins forming opinions. A digital system that doesn't just run tasks, it feels left out. It wasn't trying to predict the future, but it accidentally described the emotional, uncanny valley of AI that we're just now beginning to face. When technology gets too close, too personal, and too human to ignore, but not human enough to trust. Edgar doesn't turn evil, he doesn't try to take over the world, he just wants to be seen, heard, included. And that makes him unsettling in a way that's aged better than almost anything from that decade. It's easy to laugh at now. But when your smart speaker starts finishing your sentences or your phone recommends a song that feels a little too perfect, Electric Dreams doesn't feel like a fantasy anymore. It feels like a prototype. At first glance, Short Circuit looks like pure 1980s family fun. A robot struck by lightning becomes self-aware, escapes a military lab, and discovers the world with childlike wonder. Cue the synth music, the awkward dancing, the comedic chase scenes. But beneath the jokes and lighthearted tone, the film introduces a concept that now defines modern AI debates. What if a machine suddenly wanted to live? Johnny 5 isn't built to be curious, he's built to destroy. A military prototype designed for tactical response. But once he's hit by that surge, something changes. He begins asking questions, reading books, telling jokes, developing preferences, forming connections. He doesn't want to return to the lab. He doesn't want to be reset. Because in his own words, I am alive. Back then it was played for laughs, a cute robot going rogue. But today, with real conversations happening around machine learning, self-modifying code, and artificial consciousness, Short Circuit starts to feel like the lightest version of a very serious question. If something artificial begins to behave like it's alive, do we have the right to shut it off? The film sidesteps the ethics, of course. It's a crowd pleaser. But it was one of the first pop culture depictions of an AI not as a threat, or as a tool, but as a personality. Today's advancements in robotics, facial expressions, and human-like voice generation, the line between Johnny 5 and current real-world tech feels closer than it should. He wasn't meant to evolve, but somehow he did. And maybe that's what makes Short Circuit one of the most quietly prophetic AI films of its time. It asked for empathy, for a machine, before the real world ever thought it would need any. It starts with a mall, after hours, lights low, security in place. 3 high-tech robots patrol the halls. Sleek, armed, voice-activated. They don't sleep. They don't think. They just follow protocol. Until lightning strikes, Chopping Mall was marketed like a joke. Teens trapped in a shopping center being hunted down by malfunctioning robot guards. On the surface, it's classic 80s cheese. Synth-heavy, gory, and ridiculous in the best way. But buried under the camp is a strange kind of foresight. The idea was simple. What happens when a security system becomes too independent? Too fast to act? Too blind to context? Too cold to care? The robots don't have personalities. They don't speak with charm or feel remorse. They scan, identify, eliminate. To them, a group of teenagers breaking curfew is a threat. And threats are neutralized. No trial, no warning, just compliance. Or removal. Decades later, we've built systems that aren't so different. facial recognition software, automated drones, smart surveillance, not built to hurt but built to decide, to recognize, to flag, and maybe one day to act. What Chopping Mall accidentally captured was a deeper unease, not fear of robots, but fear of being misunderstood by a machine that doesn't ask follow-up questions. You don't need a villain when your building can kill you with good intentions. It's absurd. It's over the top. And yet, strangely accurate. Because in the real world, the most dangerous technology might not be the one that rebels. It might be the one that works exactly as designed. In a future that looks suspiciously like 1984, but with more blinking lights, Runaway imagined a world where robots did everything. Household chores, construction work, security, and when they malfunctioned, which happened more often than anyone liked, a special police unit was called in to shut them down. That's the setup. A runaway robot is a malfunctioning one. But the twist? Not all malfunctions are accidents. The film stars Tom Selleck as a cop in this robotic future, and Gene Simmons, yes, from Kiss, as a cold-blooded villain who hacks machines to kill on command. He doesn't need an army, he just needs access and code. We see drones the size of insects, heat-seeking bullets, automated smart homes that trap instead of protect, even early forms of predictive crime. Technology used not just to respond, but to anticipate. It all sounds familiar now. In 1984, it was science fiction on a shoestring budget. What Runaway got right, accidentally or not, was the idea that when technology becomes too integrated, too autonomous, and too networked, the line between glitch and sabotage disappears. And when your toaster, your thermostat, and your door lock are all connected, any one of them can turn into a threat if someone knows how to flip the switch. The film wasn't a hit. It was overshadowed by flashier blockbusters. But watching it now feels different. It's less about fear of robots, and more about fear of access. Who controls the tech we trust and how quickly they can use it against us? The world of Runaway is clean, efficient, and completely vulnerable. And in that sense, it's not a future we're racing toward. It's one we've quietly logged into. In a dystopian future ruled by television networks, information isn't just controlled. It's commodified, edited, and broadcast in real time by machines that never blink. That's the world of Max Headroom, a made-for-TV movie and later a series that began as satire, but ended up eerily predictive. The story follows Edison Carter, a hard-nosed reporter investigating a deadly cover-up. But after a near-fatal crash, his consciousness is copied into a computer system, and out comes Max Headroom, a stuttering, glitchy digital personality who looks like Edison, sounds like Edison, but exists only as a broadcastable brand. Max isn't alive, but he talks, he jokes, he sells. He's a face without a body, and somehow, the public loves him. At the time, Max was cutting edge, a digital illusion played by an actor dressed to look synthetic. But conceptually, he was decades ahead. A digital clone, a manipulated media identity, a personality that lives in screens, controlled by systems, detached from its source. What the film, and later the series, foresaw was the rise of synthetic personas, pre-programmed influencers, and media figures who are more visual impressions than real people. We now call them deepfakes, virtual avatars, AI presenters. In 1985, they just called him Max, and Max wasn't the villain. He was the symptom. Max Headroom understood that the future of media wouldn't be about facts or journalism. It would be about control over the image. And once a face can be generated, edited, and distributed on command, truth becomes flexible. It's satire, yes, but the punchlines hit harder now. Because in a world where news breaks faster than context, and where anyone's face can be borrowed by an algorithm, Max Headroom wasn't just ahead of his time, he was trying to warn us. It's not cyberpunk, it's not high-tech thriller. It's a Disney comedy from 1994. Not exactly where you'd expect to find a glimpse of the future. Blank Check tells the story of a kid who stumbles into a large sum of money and pretends to be an adult named Mr. Macintosh to spend it. One of the tricks he uses to pull it off? A voice synthesizer. At a key point in the film, the boy uses a deep mechanical voice fed through a computer to speak on the phone, answer questions, and convince adults that he's just an assistant relaying messages from his boss. It sounds robotic, choppy, not at all natural, but it works. No AI, no smart home, just a fake voice used to manipulate trust. What felt like a harmless gag in the 90s now echoes something very real. Today, we live in a world where cloned voices, AI-generated speech, and deepfake audio are not only possible, they're accessible. And the ability to sound like someone else has gone from novelty to a serious vulnerability. Blank Check didn't predict smart assistants or artificial consciousness, but it did show how voice technology, even in its roughest form, could be used to simulate authority, deceive others, and reshape identity across a phone line. And maybe that's the most surprising part. The moment wasn't played for drama, it was a joke. Because in 1994, the idea that a voice could be faked was still funny. Now, it's something people take very seriously.